Hi, everybody. I'm Justin Kennington, president of the SDVoE Alliance, and now I'm joined by Bob Michaels, CEO of ZeeVee. Hi, Bob. Welcome.
How you doing, Justin?
Oh, I'm having a great time. Um, why don't we start off today by telling us a little bit about yourself and about ZeeVee?
Okay, so for myself, I've got a long career in technology, mostly in the semicon sector, but over the past 12 years or so in the AV industry. Okay, so started off at Magenta Research as CEO, and then came over to the ZeeVee. I guess now it's about 8 years ago. So, and at ZeeVee, we are 100% devoted to video distribution, signal distribution. We don't do anything else. We don't get involved in anything else. We are experts in the movement of video. We have been since the inception of the company, and our full engineering staff is 100% devoted to improving video distribution technology. We started off in the RF domain 13 years ago. Interestingly enough, just about everybody that was hired on the engineering side came from an IT background and had to learn RF. And so now, starting about 5.5 years ago, when we got involved with Aptovision at the time, a move back to IT to IP, if you want to put it that way. So people, had to bone up on the technology, had to relearn. But now the focus of the company, while we still have a significant business on the RF side, continue to support our customers using that level of technology. 95% of our research dollars and research efforts over the past 5 or 6 years have been put into the IP domain, with particular emphasis on what is now known as SDVoE technology. Although we started working with SDVoE technology, 3 years plus before it was even coined SDVoE.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You guys were certainly one of the earliest adopters of that technology. So walk us through a little bit the roadmap that got you from focused on RF to recognizing the AV over IP opportunity to then eventually becoming one of the founding members of the SDVoE Alliance.
Well, it was a pretty simple path, actually. We were heavily invested in the RF domain, but we knew that we needed to move away from RF. Right? Nobody in the organization was any level of believer in HDBaseT or anything that was proprietary, right? So it wasn't even discussed, right? It wasn't even a topic of conversation. It was, where are we going to go? At the time, SVSI was, the only company really that was noticeable anyway to be looking at IP solution. We looked at what they were doing. We looked at the time, compression, right? And that would mean 1 gig network. That would have been the easiest route for us to take, right, for sure. But looking at what the industry demanded at the time, and the demand was for uncompressed video, because there's just no substitute for uncompressed video. And what was out there for that? Nothing. Okay. I shouldn't say nothing. What was out there at the time was pretty much still a thought. Yeah. Okay, or pretty much a early engineering effort on behalf of Steph and Cameron and their team up there, right? Which was only a handful of people. All right, and my prior relationship with Stefan and Cameron, which went back to the semiconductor industry, that Cameron and I were involved in a startup in Montreal years ago. We knew each other, and we worked together at Magenta Research as well, all of us. And so I knew for a fact that there were very, very bright people that were working on this. I'm not an electronics engineer. I wasn't in a position to judge myself whether the product had legs or whatever, but okay, so we sent a team of engineers up to Montreal to speak with Steph and his team. They came back and told me that we think this can work. We think this has legs, and we're ready to work with these people. Okay, we're ready to work with that team up there and be the first to have this. All right, so thus the effort was started. I mean, we threw our lot in, if you want to say, in the early days of AV over IP. We knew it was not going to grab hold. immediately. We knew that there was going to be an engineering effort. We knew that there was going to be a marketing effort, where we knew that the industry was going to have to, at some point in time, embrace the technology, okay, which seems to be right, perhaps right now, totally. So, you know, again, it wasn't a difficult decision for us to make to move into IP. As Steve Metzger, who is our Vice President of Operations, says, nothing loses to the Ethernet. All right. And then he also says, how does this industry solve issues? They throw bandwidth at it. All right. So the fact is that those two items were certainly in the solution bag here. Right. And so we just adopted it. And now we have 5.5, 6 years of software into SDVoE, which is software defined. Right. And so a strong leadership position there.
Let's jump on that topic while we're on it. Why the investment in software over all this time when we know that the AV industry just likes to sell hardware?
And the differentiator is really, how do we make that device simpler to use for the customer and more efficient for the customer? All right. And so our focus, yes, we needed to develop the hardware platform. Right. And we do have the most extensive range of SDVoE devices on the market today. We have like 75 SKUs with more coming. Yeah. All right. So clearly we have work to develop products on the hardware side because you need a physical box. All right. But the fact is that the differentiator for us is in our management platform. It's in the way that the system operates. It's in the capabilities of our product. Right. Those are the differentiators. And that's why the investment is software. It has to be there. If you want to have a black box, you want an SDVoE black box, go buy it. All right, because you could buy it from a number of sources. Okay. If you want to have a differentiator, if you want to be able to do more with it, you want to have more capability, you want to have more flexibility, our boxes, our technology is a technology to buy. At the end of the
day, it's the software that's generating the final user experience. And I think that's
no question. No question.
So you mentioned, you may have already sort of answered this question, but you talked about 75 products in your catalog. You talked about the investment in software designed to make an outstanding user experience. I'll still ask the question, which is what sets your products apart compared to other members of the SDVoE Alliance using the same base technology?
Well, first of all, we don't use the reference design, right? We have designed all of our own hardware that differentiates us. The software certainly differentiates us, what we're able to do. But I think the thing that differentiates us more than anyone else in the Alliance is a level of our practical experience in the field. Mm-hmm. Okay, the customer feedback that we've been privy to over the past 5 years. Again, remember, we installed our first product when 2016 and no, I think in 2015 was the first installation. Okay, and that first one was more than 100 endpoints. Right. So since that time, we have installed in every single vertical that's out there. Right. We've installed products in operating rooms. Right. We're the only medically certified SDVoE devices on the planet as well, with thousands of devices installed around operating rooms around the globe. All right. But the practical experience of what we have with small installations, with large installations, I don't think anybody can hold a candle to the information that we've accrued from our customers in the field that have helped us to make the product better. It's still it's at the top of the technology food chain in the AV sector, and it more than likely will remain there, because I don't see anybody making anything that could even hold a candle to the capabilities of the products.
Well, that's what we're going for, certainly.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about key installations and customer successes, but let me start out more specifically, because you just touched on your play in the medical space. I'd like to ask you about that and why you brought SDVoE to the medical world, and what installations you might have had over there as an example.
Well, on the medical side, first of all, there is no more mission critical application than what is required in an operating theater.
I mean, I hear you, Bob. I've made some pretty good PowerPoints before.
That's true. And latency in PowerPoints is, yeah, I get it. I get it. Okay. People don't want to sit there for more than a half a second or so. But on a serious note, if you're on the operating table, right, and a doctor's got some endoscopic tool inside of you, and there's an attending physician that's somewhere else, and the both of them are making decisions literally split second on whether to make a cut, whether to suck something out of you, whatever it might be. Okay. Surgeons make quick decisions, right? And the operation is fluid. Latency, you kill someone, right? Easily. Manipulated color, you kill somebody, all right? The image that's up there has to be the image that is in there. There can be no question, and it's got to be there then, right? So microseconds, it must be there then. Doctors make split decisions. Okay, so again, nothing more mission critical, and you have to grab every single pixel, right? You have to be able to determine true color, because as you can differentiate, for example, between cancer cells and live healthy cells, right? So when you look at what's required there, what's the option? I mean, with today's capability, we can't compare to a couple of years ago when, the technology was something different, okay, where there was latency involved, et cetera, so on, when people were using, slower cameras, et cetera. It's not the case today, okay? There's 4K endoscopic tools that are out there being utilized today. All right, so, a doctor or a hospital needs to take advantage of the latest technology, not just in medicine, but in surgical tools as well. And this is, as far as we could see and as far as we know, this is the only technology that gives you all of that, that gives a surgeon all of that, and takes any guesswork out, minimizes the risks, okay, and pretty much dictates a better patient outcome, which is what everybody's looking for. Right. And again, it's readily usable. It's not like people have to go through days and weeks of training, expensive training, in order to utilize it. They don't.
Yeah, we talk about, offering the performance of a matrix switch with SDVoE, and yet, I mean, I've been exposed to some of those kind of operating installs. They don't have room for a matrix switch, and they don't have, the space for that kind of equipment. Whereas when you bring that performance to an Ethernet system, suddenly you have a real solution for that world.
Absolutely. And the hospitals have IT departments. They understand all of this.
Right.
Okay? So
you guys, I know you have a sort of featured installation in the endoscopy world. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I guess we have several. Most we're not at liberty to speak about individual hospitals. Okay, but there are many of them across the globe. But I guess Quadram Institute in the UK, which is part of the University of East Anglia, does about 40,000 endoscopic procedures a year. So it is a teaching hospital, all right? And they did an evaluation of all the technology that is out there, and they chose us.
I'm just breaking it down. That's what, 100? That's 100 something procedures a day.
Yes.
Wow.
There's a lot of people working pretty fast in there. So and the integrator that we work with, Snelling's in the UK, it was really their first true medical install, and they've been on the recipient side of a lot of accolades and awards for that installation. It is pretty impressive, I will say.
Fantastic. Are there any other particular application areas or installs that you've succeeded at that you want to highlight?
Oh, there's.
I know there's many, and we won't.
There's hundreds. I would say a couple high profile. One high profile in particular is the Samsung KX Center in London near King's Cross Station. Anyone who has seen it has to come away totally impressed, and I would urge anybody who has the opportunity to get into that facility to go into that facility and see where the technology is today in terms of moving video. I guess what we're most proud of, and we should all be proud of on the SDVoE front, is that the Samsung chose us over their own product. Okay.
So the Samsung that owns SVSI, right?
Yes, the Samsung. That same Samsung that owns SVSI chose ZeeVee
Wow.
okay, for that installation. And you know what? Let's face it. You walk into that facility, it is impressive, loaded with Samsung kit, everything that they make almost. Um, but what really sells anything in that facility? It's not the hardware. It's not the TV. It's not the big screen. None of that sells. What sells anything in that location is the quality of the image on whatever screen people are looking at. That's what makes people go, wow.
Yeah.
That's what shows people where the technology is, and what they could see, whether it be outside at a theater, whether it be at a concert venue, whether it be in their own home or in their own office facility. Okay, it's the video image and the quality of that video image that is up on those screens in that facility. Right, and that is ZeeVee, and that is SDVoE.
Yeah. That's I think that's an impressive statement by Samsung. The last item I wanted to touch on is partnerships inside the alliance, and the way that that opens up companies to be able to work together. One that jumps to my mind immediately when I think of ZeeVee is the work you've done with NETGEAR, partnering up for the encoder card for NETGEAR's 4300 switch. Would you tell us a little bit about that product and how that partnership came together to build it?
We, I would have to say that ZeeVee and some of our staff are really responsible for NETGEAR's participation in this marketplace. This was not a market that they were interested in, and it's many years ago, probably 5 years ago, where Rob Moneyman invited Laurent to come to a customer meeting in Belgium. He came, and frankly, we opened their eyes. All
This is
right, to
this is funny because I got Laurent's side of this story yesterday.
oh,
So
did you? Okay.
so far so good. You're right on track.
Right.
This is great. Keep going.
And so, we saw a need for someone to be, for a switch company to be involved. And frankly, we had these conversations with Cisco, and we had conversations with Dell and HP. And, their interest was rather short. Okay. And I'm talking minutes. All right. And the simple story there is that when we sat down with folks from one of those companies, and we had a large project, 200 endpoints, which, let's face it, we all love. Okay, and we went through this with them, and they said, "How long will this project take?" And we said, "Oh, it's big, so but we could probably get it done in 5 or 6 months." And the person that we were sitting with looked at his watch and he said, 200 endpoints. I've sold that in less time than you've been talking about this, okay, on the data front. And
Yeah.
fair enough, okay? But when we had that conversation with NETGEAR, and Laurent in particular, he said, "This is interesting."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and frankly, I went out to NETGEAR headquarters a couple times. We had a lot of interface with Laurent, brought him into customers. They got an understanding of the market. Went out and met with Patrick Lowe and other senior members of the NETGEAR team, and they said, "This is something that we're going to commit to. All right, we will develop switches that are suited for the Pro AV market, okay, that can work out of the box." So we worked with them from very, very early days to help them, because they did, a good portion of the work, to get them to a point where their switches and their entire range of switches for the Pro AV industry just work out of the box. All right, we are installed in every NETGEAR demonstration facility around the globe except for one. Okay, and we're installed in their headquarters on the video wall. As you walk into the facility, we're installed in their gaming facility within their headquarters, etc. So, and it only made sense that one of the advantages that that Crestron has with the DM was the ability to input right into the switch. Okay, and honestly, we lost some business because the price was less, because they went right into the switch, and people said, "Gee, I can go right into the switch." So it was only there was some good thinking on the part of NETGEAR and the part of Stefan up at SDVoE to get some direct input. Could it be done? How could it be done? Right? And okay, so we took the challenge with SDVoE and NETGEAR and us, and got the product finished design, did all the testing, experiments, et cetera, so on, and have now brought the product to market, right? Okay, so we were somewhat late, but the installations that we've done have all worked extremely well so far. All right, and so as NETGEAR continues, okay, it's only in a 96 port switch today, but certainly, you know, it's going to be adapted to be in a smaller switch, 48 port, certainly coming here in the near future. So, you know, NETGEAR certainly has a leadership position in terms of supporting video. Clearly, there are a lot of installations. We can use any switch, and we have used any switch, right? We have used white branded switches. People have wanted to use those. Okay, we're able to use those. We can make just about anything work, just because of the nature of the product, right? But clearly NETGEAR is in the lead.
Yeah, great. Well, I think we've covered everything I wanted to touch on. Is there anything else that you wanted to hear about or talk about or cover?
I think we continue to make great strides, right? I think that you know, we're getting to the point where the 1 gig versus 10 gig argument is more readily dismissed than it was in the past, because that clearly is not what this is about and has never been what it's about. But for a company that only makes you know, one product and it's a 1 gig, what else are they going to argue? All right. And especially in the past, when they've dictated that everything must be uncompressed, and is it just kidding? We were just kidding.
It turns out it's fine.
It's yeah, you know, yeah, it's fine. Do it this way, do it my way, okay? And I, you know, and the fact is that we haven't had to give away tens of thousands of units for free to prove our point.
Right.
All right. So you know, and SDVoE, as you read in articles today, we have conversations with customers today, SDVoE slides off the tongue as a technology. Okay, it's becoming, you know, use the word standard. It's not a standard, right? Because there's not a standard written around, but it's becoming standard.
Yeah.
Right. So people look at it and say, okay, I want to use SDVoE technology. I want to incorporate SDVoE technology. All right. So, you know, it's 1 gig still outsells us for sure, because it's easier, because people want to use existing infrastructure, et cetera, so on. Okay. But that argument too, nobody today installs Cat 5e. Not that I know of. Okay. So that argument about using existing, we get it, because we also sell coax. So we use that argument as well. Okay. But let's face it, installations, 6A, 7, right? Right. Perfect for us. And even now, fiber. I mean, fiber is really the way to go.
And frankly, any new AV over IP installation, 1 gig, 10 gig, is always going to bring new network infrastructure with it, right? Nobody's actually got a spare 1 gig port sitting on their network with 200 unused ports and all of that bandwidth available for free. If they are, it's like, fire your IT guy now, right? Because why did you pay for that last year if you're not using it? So
people at home demand full 1 gig.
Right.
And then when it comes to the office, it's like, yeah, whatever. Wait, what? Wait, no. At home, you got 4 people. In the office, you have 60.
Right. Right. All right, Bob. Well, thanks for taking the time today. And we'll wrap this up here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.